Why are we insisting on the word happiness? Because we're thinking long-term here. We're thinking about a revolution in the way people think about the good life. A revolution in terms of the way people think and pursue life's ultimate currency. Happiness.
Hello and welcome, everyone, from wherever you are and whenever you are. And I see we have people from Chicago, Albania. Well, what time is it there? From Portugal, also late. Halifax, New Jersey. I'm from New Jersey. Hi. Houston, Florida, Los Angeles, Tokyo. Amazing. Guatemala. Welcome all. It's really wonderful to be here. Very excited about today's conversation. And I'll tell you in a minute why. You know, before I got into this field of happiness studies, my training was in organizational behavior, and still today I do a lot of work in companies, in organizations. And over the past, since COVID, around the middle of COVID, I guess, 2020, 2021, the number one reason that people call me to speak at their organization is something related to burnout. Stress, breakdown, burnout. And today we have an expert on the topic. We have Neha Sangwan, Dr. Neha Sangwan. She's the founder of Intuitive Intelligence, medical doctor, engineer, author, speaker, a true communication expert, a true Renaissance woman. And, this is becoming more and more rare these days when you have, people specializing, being put into one, small silo. Well, we have an integrative thinker with us today. She empowers individuals, leaders, and teams with powerful and practical communication tools that focus on stress, preventing burnout, inspiring accountability, and collaboration. She works with organizations, American Express, Google, Mass General Brigham, Stanford, and many, many others. 2 incredible books that she has authored. One is Talk RX, which is about learning to have honest conversation with for connection, health, and happiness. And the second book, which is what we're going to talk about today, is called Powered by Me, From Burnout to Fully Charged at Work and in Life. Neha, welcome.
Well, what an honor to be with you. So excited, everyone. And I want to say all those credentials that you named, they just mean I'm a very good Indian child. I do truly believe that the complex solutions that we seek in today's world will be solved at the intersection of disciplines we don't think go together. People say, why are you an engineer and a doctor? Well, the doctoring piece gives me the science of medicine. The engineering piece helps me make things very practical. And the communication piece is my own wounds that I needed to heal in order to understand. So my burnout myself and having this background helped me solve it at the intersection of disciplines people didn't think go together. And I wouldn't claim to have solved it, but I've healed me and helped many others. So I would say that intersection has been very important.
Yeah, I couldn't agree with you more on various levels. So the first level, Carl Rogers, the famed American psychotherapist, said that what is most personal is most general. What is most personal is most general. So, I often talk to my students about it, where I say to them, learn from everyone. Learn from what we're doing, learn from Lao Tzu and learn from the Buddha and learn from Sonia Lubemirsky and Marty Seligman.
That's right.
And ultimately, you teach you. You don't teach any of them. You integrate what they have to teach you. Ultimately, you teach you. The second thing I'm very much, and our whole approach in the Happiness Studies Academy is interdisciplinary. So we focus on neuroscience and positive psychology and philosophy and theology and movies and organizational behavior, and the list goes on. So, so I'm really looking forward to your wisdom on this very pressing issue. I mean, there's burnout all around us. I mean, you see it even with in schools with kids. We didn't used to see these things in the past. So how about we begin with the basics?
Sure.
What is burnout? How does it affect us?
Well, the way that burnout is described is as a triad. So the triad is physical, mental, emotional exhaustion. Now, that isn't something that's short term. That often has been going on for quite some time. And your body, I mean, Mother Nature is much too magnificent. We have many ways that we adjust to that stress. So after those mechanisms, and then we humans have many ways we adjust, right? When I was a doctor in the hospital and had to stay awake for 36 hours, I had a time-tested equation that got me through those 36 hours without sleep. 2 ice cold Mountain Dews plus a king size Snickers bar, and I could not sleep for 36 hours. So whenever we go through stress, and I really want to acknowledge the level of stress going on in the world right now, these kinds of stresses, our bodies and our minds and our hearts do whatever we need to get through. So it's not a bad thing. Listen, I wouldn't do that today, a sugar, caffeine, buzz strategy. But when I was in school, your students, when they have to get through finals week, they've got a way that they do it. Mm-hmm. And so each of you listening, please think for a moment about how when you have physical, mental, emotional exhaustion, what is the way that you still get yourself over the deadline, still get things done? So the first triad of burnout is physical, mental, emotional exhaustion. And it's been going on for some time. And you've figured out ways to adjust your physiology. The second piece of this is after all of that has been going on for a while, a voice kind of creeps in, and it's cynicism. And it's saying something to the effect of, it doesn't matter how hard I try, how hard I work. It's not going to make a difference. Nothing's going to matter. And when you yourself start to hear those voices, which can come in subtly, now you've created an undertow, kind of when you're walking on the beach and there's an undertow. No one can see it, but boy, you can feel it. Mm. And now you've undermined now you're starting to undermine yourself. The other thing that happens in the second piece is something called depersonalization, where despite feeling lonely and isolated, you won't engage with other people. You'll start to depersonalize things where if, let's say it was me as a patient, me as a doctor, I would say the gentleman in 636, but I won't use his name or her name. Mm. And I start distancing myself. Ironically, I'm feeling alone. I'm feeling like I'm burning out and I need that connection, but it's too much energy and effort. So I'm starting to make adjustments now, subconsciously sometimes, to preserve my energy because it's that undertow is happening. And the third piece of this.
Before we get to the third piece, just a quick question now. So when you talk about depersonalization, it's both a symptom and a cause of the burnout, meaning
it very well can be. That's right. Yeah, it very well can be, because the isolation and lack of connection itself, just like many of us, in the world, obviously experienced with the pandemic, can also create this drain of energy. Yeah.
Okay, so we have the physical, mental, and emotional exhaustion. We have that cynicism. We have the depersonalization. What's the third?
And the final one is ineffectiveness. Now you are no longer able to function the way that you used to. Things are taking much longer. You're just not able to. And I'd say to you, 20 years ago, nearly 20 years ago, I walked into the hospital. I thought exhaustion was normal. I thought feeling heavy, like a lead weight inside me as I moved through my hospital rotation. I had become accustomed to thinking that was normal. So I walked in and I had 18 hospitalized patients. And there's a part of me, Tal, that ever since I was a little girl, wanted to be a good girl. And so when people wanted things from me, their needs were more important than mine. And so when I walked in, they said, oh, one person's called in sick. Can you take the alpha pager? So on top of my final day on rotation, I said, yeah, sure. Now, the alpha pager means air traffic control for all incoming admissions to the hospital. So I need to finish my 18 patients. And now I've accepted the pager that requires me to assess all incoming patients. By 11 a.m. that day, 5 hours later, the nurse, I say to the nurse, Nina, could you please get me 40 milliequivalents of IV potassium for the gentleman in 636? And she says, Dr. Sangwan, are you okay? And I said, yeah, why? And she said, because that's the fourth time in under 5 minutes you've asked me that question, and I've answered you every time. And that was my first indication that something was wrong. So it's not, many people have judgments about burnout. They think, oh, people are lazy that burn out. No. Burnout is actually someone who has become very good at numbing their own body's signals of stress. And oftentimes they need other people to tell them that something is changing.
Wow.
So it wasn't until that moment that I had any indication that I might not be okay.
Okay, so.
Excuse me, Tal, can you increase the volume, please?
Yes. So if you know that, you recognize whether it's because it's the ineffectiveness that you're noticing, or someone tells you, hey, something's wrong here, or you become attuned to your emotions.
Yeah.
You realize that you're experiencing burnout. What do you do? The first step is recognition, obviously, realization, awareness.
Yeah.
What do you do?
Okay, so let me give you a little bit more of the picture so that people can recognize where they are right now, and then I'll take you into this. So
Please.
I already told you that burnout does not happen all of a sudden. It happens over time. So in addition to there being the triad of exhaustion, cynicism, and ineffectiveness, there is also the 3 phases of burnout that one goes through. The original one is the alarm phase. The alarm phase is like you've suddenly jumped on a treadmill that's going too fast. That experience where you skip, right? Your heart starts racing, your blood pressure goes up. You may be more irritable. You may be have some intestinal issues, headaches. Something may just feel very off. Now, the one thing I want to tell everybody is, anytime you have a new physical symptom like that, please don't go straight to burnout. I must be in the alarm phase of burnout. The first thing you have to do is get a clean bill of health from your provider. If your provider says, oh, you're fine, everything looks fine, the blood work, the tests, everything looks fine, but you don't feel fine, that's when you start thinking, maybe these symptoms could be from stress. Now, so there's the alarm phase. Now, many people, once they get on that treadmill that's moving too fast, they don't actually get off of it. In fact, they themselves start turning up the speed, 0.1, right? And now it's become a way of life. And when this faster and faster and faster pace that our world is moving at becomes your way of life, you're now in the chronic adaptation phase. You're using, I'm using the sugar caffeine buzz strategy. You may be using the a glass of wine after work strategy that suddenly turns into 2 glasses or more. You may be surfing the web just to tune out. You may have many ways in which you do this. So if anybody wants to share in the chat ways that you tune out your own physiology, you will help each other. You will help each other with, oh, I didn't even know that I was doing that. So feel free to please share in the chat ways that you might tune out. So the alarm phase continued, turns into the chronic adaptation phase. And then one more thing, just one more thing. That day they handed me that alpha pager and I had to now take care of air traffic control, sent me sliding down the slippery slide of burnout in the exhaustion phase, all the way to ineffectiveness. Literally, I was asking the same question again and again with no recollection that this was happening. So I want people to just take a moment. And yes, it is true that exhaustion is one of the symptoms of the triad, and it's the final phase of the 3 phases. So if that seems confusing, I apologize for whoever named this. It can be a little confusing, but it is the symptoms as well as the final phase.
Yeah.
Does that feel clearer now on how
it feels very clear? And I must say, I connect to exhaustion being in both of them because as I mentioned earlier about the depersonalization, it's both a cause and an effect, because that's what you have when you have a system. And
That's right.
They're all interconnected. All these symptoms, all the outcomes are interconnected, so that they can function as both.
Absolutely. And so the way that I burned out approximately 20 years ago. And the craziest part was, I didn't know, I'm an internal medicine physician. I've gone through medical school. I've gone through residency. We never spoke about this. When I burned out, I had no idea what was going on. Yet, when somebody burns out, where do we send them? To me. And so the system wants me to do two things. I need to assess if they're actually burned out, because I have the power of the pen. I can write them for paid time off to help their physiology get back in gear. The second thing I have in my toolkit is a cocktail of medications that I can use depending on what I hear them say to me. An antidepressant, an anti-anxiety, a sleep medication, right? I have some tools that I can use to help their physiology get back to normal. Here's the problem. While as a traditionally trained Western medicine doctor, I can pull them off the cliff of burnout, in their month off, their 10 days off, whatever I give them, 10 days, month later, we send them back into the ring for round 2 with no understanding of how they got there and what to do differently so it doesn't happen again. And that has been the last 20 years of my learning, which is if the answer isn't out there, my job is to fill in that gap from acute burnout to somebody who may be on the spectrum from burned out to fully charged, is not all the way to burned out, but is losing some energy and wants to know, how do I assess it and how do I replenish? Yes. And so that's really what my 20 years has been dedicated to.
All right. So I want to hear about those 20 years and what you have found. We're going to go, I'm going to continue asking you questions for the next probably 10, 15 minutes, and then we'll open it up for your questions, whoever is here. And the way to ask question is to put your hand up from reactions, and then we will call on you and you will join us.
Sure.
So 20 years. Summarize, please.
All right. Well, listen, this is the engineer in me now. I'm going to just make it practical. So The first thing is, what I say in the book is I give you the behind the scenes of me in the psychiatrist's office in 5 sessions, him explaining to me what is happening for me. So people want to simplify this, but I will tell you, we're facing a very complex issue. And the way I think of complex issues is me, we, world. Yes, I was contributing to my burnout with my 2 ice cold 16-ounce Mountain Dews and a king-size Snickers bar where my sugar would go up and then it would crash. But is burnout my fault? No, it is not my fault. I am trying to survive a pace of the external world that my biology does not know how to handle. So actually, instead of beating myself up, I want to thank myself for coming up with some strategies that helped me through a stressful time. So I want to make sure there is no blame here.
You know,
So
it reminds me of the work of Christine Neff, who talks about self-compassion.
You bet.
So begin with self-compassion. You know, it's no one's to blame.
That's
And
right.
then you can proceed.
And then the second level, which is whatever environment that you are functioning in, whether it be family, whether it be a work environment, right? I was experiencing bullying there, and a way in which there was a power and hierarchy that kind of discouraged me from really connecting to other people. I needed to be in a position of power. And then there's the world, the system of the hospital, the policies, the understaffing in order to make budget. So what they did was they knew that we were very selfless and serving. So if somebody called out sick, there was no backup plan. We were the backup plan, right? Okay. So we, world is how I would encourage you to look at any complex situation. So when I came to this, I said, from burned out to fully charged, how do you assess it for yourself? Well, whether you have a net gain or a net drain of energy on a physical, mental, emotional, social, and spiritual level. So you first, in order to assess it, and Tal, how about if I do this? I've been on book tour for a few months, but why don't we give everybody in the show notes a link to how they do the assessment themselves, so they don't have to buy the book; they can right away do it. And in there, I will walk them through each of these sections so that they understand what they're doing. And here's the trick about the assessment. I don't want you to just do your assessment from your mind. I want you to answer the questions, but while you're answering the questions, pay attention to your body and pay attention to when I'm saying, oh, that's fine. My food is fine. My sleep, I'm doing okay there. 6 hours is plenty. And you're going down it, like, pay attention to your body, because if your body is constricted, heavy, tense, while your mind is saying everything's an 8 or a 10, that is not an 8 or a 10. That's a net drain. Because your mind has overridden what your body is trying to tell you. And so as you go through each of these sections, once you answer the questions, I ask you to pause and check in. Are you relaxed, open, and at ease in your body as your mind gave the answers? So then you can figure out whether it's a net gain or a net drain. Because what I've learned in 20 years is, as unique as our fingerprint, so too is the path we get to our own energy drain. We make choices. We live in certain circumstances. World events happen. We have so many unique ways in which we get there, that this has become one way that people can do a pulse check of where they are now. And once they know where they're having a net gain or a net drain, they can then focus there on the tools.
Got it. So let's give it to him. What's the link?
Okay. So intuitiveintelligenceinc.com /burnout -RX. So it's intuitiveintelligenceinc.com.
Intelligenceinc.com, burnout. I think I got it.
Burnout, just a little hyphen, RX.
RX.
Yeah. And they can download it and they'll get a whole video series. So I want you all to pay attention, because I will walk you through all of that later. And you will literally have 6 mini videos where I'll take you through the assessment.
Perfect.
And please share it. You share it with whoever you want, because I really care that this is, and if you find that you're quite burned out, a book is not where I want you to go. I want you to actually get professional help. And I also want you to, on page, let's also give them this. If you're in acute burnout right now, if while we were talking about exhaustion, cynicism, and ineffectiveness, or the alarm phase, chronic adaptation and exhaustion, if you said, oh my gosh, I'm in chronic adaptation or exhaustion, what do? It is not by my book. Okay. It is literally, we're just going to give them on page 20 in the book, the emergency toolkit. That's where I want you to go immediately. Get medical help, ask someone for help, and then go on page 20. I'm going to look here for a minute and let me give you the proper thing. But I tell people, don't keep reading this book. Use these tools and get yourself grounded. IntuitiveIntelligenceInc.com, PBM resources. And that's where you can get guided imagery, autogenics, soft belly breathing, anything to help ground you in this moment is sometimes what people need acutely.
Great. So you talk about the 5 elements: the physical, the mental, the emotional, the social, and the spiritual. It's, by the way, very similar to our model of happiness. We have the SPIRE model, which is spiritual, physical, intellectual, that's your mental, relational,
and social,
which is your social, exactly, and emotional, finally. So when you look at these 5, which ones, pick one or 2, which ones are the most common issues today that you encounter that people can actually work on?
Yeah. So you can work on all of them. Here's the good news. There are practical tools for all of them. And it doesn't matter where you start, because everything is interconnected. When you invest in your, let's just say within physical, when you decide you're going to get a half an hour more of sleep, okay, or go for a half an hour walk, let's do that. You decide, you know what, I haven't been moving. I'm going to do a half an hour walk each day. Well, you walking, not only 30 minutes or jogging, has now shown to lift your mood, right?
It's emotional already.
You've already lifted emotional. And ATP, adenosine triphosphate, is the body's energy system. So when you walk to get energy, your adenosine breaks off from the 3 phosphates, and adenosine goes up to your brain to help you sleep better. So your one action to increase your physical energy has now helped other aspects and lifted your emotional energy. So the most important thing as you do this assessment is figuring out for yourself, where do I feel the most called to pay attention and invest my energy here? Because you have very little of it if you're feeling that you're on the burnout spectrum. So notice where you're drawn. So let's say, so physical, I just gave you an example, okay? Mental, let's say, pay attention to the thoughts so we have approximately 70,000 thoughts a day, and 90 to 95% of them are the same as yesterday. No wonder it's so hard for us to change our minds, right? And so why is it that our minds can be changed during crisis? Because we're so shocked, it disrupts us from that normal flow. And so what I'd say is to everybody listening, just pay attention, slow down in the shower, on a walk, when you're driving, and pay attention to observe what thoughts are running in the background on repeat in your mind. And if you write down the top 3 thoughts, I want you to then check in with your body as you're writing them. Do these give you a net gain of energy or a net drain of energy? Because if those are running in the background, that's the time to spend some time with Kristen Neff's self-compassion. How is it that you've learned to talk to yourself? And if you're a parent, this is what I want you to remember. Pay attention to the way you speak to your children, because your outside voice will become their inside voice.
Wow. Yeah.
And so the question I'd ask people once they've written these 3 thoughts down, and whether it's a net gain or a net drain, whose voice is this? Because it's not yours if it's a net drain. Okay, so emotional. Now, this is, Tal, you asked me where people are struggling the most. Emotional and spiritual is where it is. But what will they admit to first, usually in a corporate setting? Physical and mental. During the pandemic, it was social, right? And so it changes depending on where we are, which is why I tried to create more of a universal anytime check-in. How do you check in and see where you are? So emotional. What I'd say in emotional is, number 1, don't tune out your emotions, try to go around them, under them, over them, ignore them. Because Tal, imagine you and I have a conflict, okay? If you and I have a conflict, the conflict sits right here between us. Maybe I'm feeling very emotional. I'm disappointed. I'm upset about something, and I don't want to have that. I'm afraid to have that conflict, so I ignore it. Guess what? This conflict, I might be in social right now. I'm in social, but this conflict between us doesn't go away. It gets bigger. And what happens is, just like I'm holding a beach ball, trying to hold a beach ball under the water in the deep end, it will come flying up at the most inopportune moment and create even more havoc in our relationship. But here's the thing. If I don't say anything to you, the conflict doesn't go away. It only changes location. Now it's inside me. I'm brushing my teeth at night, looking in the mirror, thinking, Neha, why didn't you say something? Why didn't you say something? You should have told him it upset you. So now the conflict is not between us. It has changed location and it is within me. Now, let me go back to emotional. That's something about social. And the way that you assess social is you just write down the top 5 people or groups of people that you spend time with online or in person. Do that same body check as you write down net gain or net drain. You feeling tense, right? And heavy, or you feeling relaxed and lifted? Okay. Emotional. Let me go back. Sorry, I didn't do this in order. So emotional, the most important thing I want them to know is don't zero out your emotions. Emotions are the way you know how you're relating to your life in this moment. It's almost as if you have a GPS system inside you, and emotions are the blue dot saying you are here now. It's letting you know where you are, and no map is going to be useful for you in your life if you don't know where you are. So emotions are incredibly important. And the thing I would say is the biggest misconception in emotions is that tears are a sign of weakness. In fact, there are 3 types of tears. There's continuous tears, how you and I can see each other right now, open our eyes in the world, and it doesn't dry out. Right? These are continuous tears. They have lysozyme in them. They lubricate your nose and your eyes in order for us not to get an infection. They're very useful. Then there's me putting in a contact or getting dust in my eyes. That's the second type of tears, where reflexive rush of tears of a different composition are there to protect us. And the third type of tears that William Frey, a biochemist in Minneapolis, discovered was emotional tears. And emotional tears are literally the body's way of expressing emotion from the body and releasing it. So when you hold that in, it's a big problem because it's the way the body lets go of it. And in those emotional tears are also endorphins, the feel-good hormone you get when you exercise. So I want you to know it's all connected. And I say cry away because you're going to feel better and you're going to get a great night's sleep. So the final one is spiritual. And the spiritual energy piece I describe as what matters most to you. What do you value most? So it's your highest values, but it's not just your highest values. It's your highest values prioritized in the order in which you value them. And the reason that's important is in a world where we need to make so many complex decisions, if I don't know who I am and what I value, I become driftwood in the ocean, going in whatever way the wind blows me. And my goal for each human being is to be a sailboat with a rudder, influenced by the wind, but charting one's own path.
You know, it's interesting you use this metaphor. William Damon from Stanford University wrote a wonderful book called The Path to Purpose. And he's in the School of Education, so he looks mostly at children, but it applies as much to adults. And one of his archetypes around purpose are the drifters. These are people who do not have the rudder, who do not have, in the words of Bill George, their true north.
That's right.
In terms of knowing where and how they want to go.
Bet. You bet. And let's give them one question to ask themselves here. We do the highest values, using them to make quick and effective decisions that are right for you. And this section is about self-trust. And I think this is so applicable in the world right now. Write down, where do you trust yourself and where don't you? And Tal, if you're open to it, I'd love you and I to do it for them.
Yes, please.
I would tell you, I trust myself on a mental, emotional, social, and spiritual level. And also I take risks financially. I'm an entrepreneur. I have needed to take great risks. Now, where I do not take risks is physically. I am not someone who will go bungee jumping with you. I will not go, do these physical risks. I also, for many, many years, was unwilling to take romantic risks in relationship. And so now, how about you? Where do you take risks and where do you not take risks so much?
Yeah, so I think spiritually, in terms of purpose, I do take risk. I'm very, very focused, and when I know I want something, I go for it. The mental as well. I'm a lot of my life is in my head, analyzing, thinking. I think where I don't is social, and I'm wondering whether it's connected to introversion, to just a natural shyness.
Yeah.
But I think I can do more. I can do better.
Yeah. Beautiful. So here's the question, right? Where in your life, everybody listening, and if you're willing to share it in the chat, please do. Where in your life do you take risks and where do you not take risks? Because here's the deal. You now know where Tal and I trust ourselves and where we don't. Because self-trust is in the arenas in which you are boldly willing to take risks. And so that's part of spiritual as well. And in a world where we are having all of this turmoil, we are all in situations that we have not experienced before, nor has anyone else. And so we must find our rudder and our sailboat. We must know where we take risks and where we don't. Then we can start to navigate together to create what I call a sacred soul dance of our souls so that we can evolve as one human family.
Love that. Wow. Okay. I promised that we would take questions from the audience. I have a million questions, so this is to be continued. But why don't we hear Adriana?
Thanks, Tal.
Hi.
Thanks, Tal. Thank you, Neha, for the time and all the information that you've shared. I'm really impressed. And I'm very glad that the universe and, through Happiness Studies Academy, I meet you because I've been studying about burnout since 2017, since I was there for the first time. And I've been studying a lot because I didn't know, as you mentioned some minutes ago, I didn't know what was happening to me. I used to work for a global company. I'm from Mexico. And I was feeling burnout, I think, twice or three times a year, at least. But I didn't know what was happening to me. I was just overwhelmed. It's this kind of thing that happens. But then when I decided to resign to the position that I have at that moment in sales, I started to study. I moved to HR and I started to study what happened to me. Why was I feeling that way? And then the burnout concept came up to me. And I've learned at that time that Mexico was the country number one named by the Health Organization worldwide with the burnout rate before US and before, I think it's China. So I was really impressed at that time knowing this information. Wow. So based on that, Nia, the question that I have for you is, I have been studying about burnout, and every time that I go to a corporation, now I'm starting to work with schools because I know that we have stress everywhere. By the way, I decided to resign on December last year to this global corporation. And then I'm looking forward to start building something around how can I help people manage stress. So it's very good for me to know about you, because I'm sure that I'm going to be learning a lot from you. However, I'm feeling a little bit challenged every time that I go to a corporation or any company and some schools, because the managers or the executives that I'm going to work with, they don't want to talk about stress. It's like they are scared. At least in Mexico, I think we are not yet prepared to talk about stress. Yep. The last time that I was talking with some people in the school, they were telling me, we don't want to open that door because we don't know what we're going to find there. It's like, it's scary for them. So I think this is a stopper that I would like to know and to hear from you, which would be some good ways to just go along with them, not to be scared, because this is going to be impacting at some point in time in a very aggressive way, I think, in some companies or whichever organization you can name, if they don't take this in a serious way. So I would love to hear from you some recommendations there on how to do this thing.
Sure. Well, first of all, thank you for your question. The most important piece I have found in probably 20 some years of doing this is I don't speak to stress and burnout as much as I figure out what their biggest pain point is. Because listen, stress causes or exacerbates more than 80% of all illness, okay? Stress is often, you can weave stress in later. But if they've been struggling with engagement, if they've been struggling with turnover, if they've been struggling with performance, I promise you stress is playing a role. We just spoke about how it's on a physical, mental, emotional, social, and spiritual level. So don't come in with that, the stress. Come in with, what are you struggling with that needs to be solved? And then what I do is I figure out how the tools I have can help them solve that issue. So I would definitely start there. What I will tell you that I'm learning, I'm rolling out company-wide wellness programs, because I actually think now the old model is that you bring me in, I work with the CEO and the executive teams, then I do gravity rounds, next level of leaders, next level of leaders. You pay me a lot of money and 5 years go by as I keep dropping to the next level of leadership to teach them and hope that they teach their people. No. I think that's the old model of leadership. Flip it on its head. One leader is not in charge of 15 other people and their wellness. 15 people need to be in charge of one person's wellness, and it's their own. Their job is to know themselves well enough and let their leader know what they need. And so what I do now is CEO to front hire, like new hire, all on the same experience, having a shared experience, learning all these tools together and doing what you and I did today, which was like, hey, tell me what your coping mechanisms are. And then I ask Tal, hey, Tal, where do you, have a net gain and drain of energy in the spiritual area? Where do you take risks? Where don't you? And we all have a shared experience where we learn tools, we learn about each other, we learn about ourselves, and we have a common language. Now, here's the trouble I ran into. The executives, exactly like you said, were so scared that I was opening up something that they couldn't answer. And so what I would say is, I spend the first 3 months with them. So they get almost like a runway, they get a running start, and they have a little bit of an idea of what's happening. Then they become less afraid, and then they're willing to see that this can be very useful. So that's what I hope is helpful.
Thank you.
Thank you, Neha.
Thank you very much.
Astrid.
Thank you. Oh, what a wonderful presentation. Thank you so much. So I have a question because I teach at the Yale School of Music. So I'm teaching graduate students in the conservatory, and my class is all about collaborative leadership and creativity. And I have found that this year, my students are more worried than they've ever been about their futures, about their careers, and the uncertainty. So next week, I'm doing a brand new class on Tal, the spire of career building. So I'm using Tal's model, which is very similar to your model, the multi-pronged approach to happiness, and then how that folds into career building. And I'm going to spend a lot of time on emotional well-being, the permission to be human, and what to do to build optimism. And then this week in my inbox came an email from a psychologist named Noah Kageyama, who is a Juilliard-trained violinist and a PhD in psychology. He's on the Juilliard faculty, and he writes this great newsletter called The Bulletproof Musician. And this week, he talked about a study of burnout done by J. Brian Sexton. Do you know about this study? So it was a study of burnout in hospitals. And he came up with this really interesting exercise that Noah shared. And I'm wondering what you think about this, because I was thinking of doing it with my students, that every night before you go to bed, you write down 3 good things that happened to you in the day. And then you examine and write down what was your role in bringing about these 3 good things. And then which of 10 emotions did you experience? And the 10 emotions are joy, serenity, gratitude, interest, hope, pride, amusement, inspiration, awe, and love. I'll share the link with all of you. I thought this was pretty great. And just for my own edification, I've been doing it. And it really is kind of fun. I just got off a plane a couple of days ago, and I'm really jet lagged, and I was feeling like, oh, I can't do this anymore. And so I actually did this exercise and realized, wow, that really does help. So I don't know, just in that short description, what do you think of that as an exercise to do with my close to burnout students who are kind of freaking out about their futures?
So Astrid, I just want to go over the 3 elements again. So first is writing 3 things you're grateful for. And the last one is the emotions. What's the second one?
It's the 3 good things that happened to you today, your role in making those things happen.
Agency.
Right? Yeah, good. Agency, exactly. And then the emotions, the 10, one of those positive. Yeah, it's pretty cool. So
go ahead.
Yeah, anyway, I was just curious what you thought about that as an exercise.
So I have so many thoughts. I'm going to distill them down to 3.
Okay.
The first one is your students are lucky to have you. The second one is that I believe that music is more important at times in the world when we need healing. It's even more, it's already so important. And the experience I've had of patients for decades who can find solace and comfort in music, in my partner's special needs son, it's the only thing that can calm him. I think that your students may be hearing something in society that is actually not their truth.
Right.
And so your calling and the way that you have embodied this in the world, and you're a living example of how music can make a good living, can make an impact. Your role, your story feels important here, and the why. And the last thing that I'd tell them is when you feel this way in you, do this exercise to help you. And in the end, turn up the sound of the voice of your own heart slightly louder than you can hear the voices of others. And the way you can do this is this exercise. And it feels to me like your story with the context of this exercise and the world could help them have the visual of music of their own voice becoming slightly, I don't want to tell them not to listen to others, never. I want them to have the ability to take in feedback, very valuable, but I need them to decipher what's theirs and what's something else. And so turn up the voice of their own heart, the melody. I would call it a melody, the melody of their own heart, slightly louder than they can hear the song of others.
Oh, that's so brilliant. Thank you so much. Wow.
You're so welcome. Thank you for your question.
Thank you, Gertrude. Thank you, Astrid. Oscar.
Thank you, Tal. Thank you for this conference or lecture. I want to ask you, what strategy can I use to reduce the negative things? Thank you.
Sure. Okay, before you go, can you give me, Oscar, could you give me a little more specifics? What negative things are they? Me, we, world? Is it in your mind? Is it in your heart? Is it in your relationships? Is it how you relate to the world? If you give me a little specifics, I will try to cater this to be helpful, most helpful to you.
Okay, it's related to future plans. So currently, I think too much related to future plans. So this for me is very exhausted. So what strategy can I use to reduce that kind of things in my mind?
You mean stress over future plans?
Exactly.
So stress over the future. Yeah. So the stress that Oscar is referring to is over future plans, meaning what's going to happen. How I'm going to survive.
Right.
The year.
Okay. Okay. Thank you, Oscar. So what you're speaking about, Oscar, is a failed attempt to control the future. This is the origins. And I would ask you, Oscar, if you sometimes find yourself up at night running through these scenarios, because this is the closest to anxiety. What is anxiety? It's based in fear and the emotion, right? It's a fear-based emotion. And it is about a failed attempt to control. What if this and what if that and what if this? So what you want to do is, I have something called the 5-step, that's decision making. Give me a second. The back from the future tool. Okay. Mm. And I'm going to look it up right here and I'm going to put it. Oh, you know where you can get it? Got it. You already have intuitiveintelligenceinc.com/PBM resources, where you get the breathing and the autogenics and the guided imagery. If you scroll down farther, you're going to get one that says anxiety, and there's going to be a back from the future tool PDF in there. I want you to use the video and the PDF if you don't get what you need from me right now. If you need more clarity, okay, you're going to have a resource. So what I'd say is, the first thing you have to do is you have to get grounded in your body in the present moment. Literally, Oscar, right now, and everybody on the call in support of Oscar, I want you to take a nice, slow, deep breath in and out. And I want you to feel gravity pulling you down and your own breath, your own rib cage expanding and contracting. The very first step of getting out of that thinking is by bringing your body that's spiraling out into the future back into the present moment. Second thing you want to do is you want to write down what I'm most afraid of is, what I'm most scared of is, and leave about an inch in between each of these, what I'm most afraid of is, okay? We're going to come back to it, because now let's say I said, what I'm most afraid of is getting sick. What I'm most afraid of is that I might, when I travel on a plane, get ill. Okay. Now we go to the third part of this. Now I brought my thoughts from spiraling in the future. I brought those back in the present, and now they're on a paper. Okay. The third thing we do is we do a reality check here. Okay, what signals tell me that I'm sick? No fever, I feel good, never been exposed to anyone. Okay, so my reality check now on the third part, underneath, I write down, oh, I'm actually healthy. I've had no exposure. I'm doing okay. The fourth one is, okay, now what affirmation, that's this repeat thought that starts going on. What if? Now that you've realized, my truth in my reality is that no exposures happen and I'm not actually feeling poorly. So what I write is, instead of what if I get sick, when I notice that's going on, I flip it to, I am whole, healthy, and well. And so now what you've done is you've only say something to yourself that's true. Okay. I don't want to have you saying things that aren't true. This isn't about making things up. Okay. But the truth of the present moment is I am whole, healthy, and well. And so if I can remind myself of that, I interrupt that thought pattern and I replace it with something that is true. And then the final question I would ask you after you've written all of these down, right? All these fears is, what would self-trust and courage do now? Because a failed attempt to control the future and doing all the what ifs, this is because you're in the past, I'm just going to guess, that you felt ill-equipped at some point in your life to handle what happened. And now your mind wants to protect you from all the scenarios that might happen. And so it's running these loops, but those are draining you of your mental energy. And they might be keeping you up at night, not letting you recharge. So what you want to do here is list them up, bring everything back from the future, bring it back, bring it into the present moment, look at it, and get really clear about what's happening. And at the very end, ask yourself, if you have a dilemma, what would self-trust and courage do now? So that's the way that I would think through that.
Thank you very much indeed.
Thank you, Oscar, for the question. And Neha, thank you. You know, one of the things that we know from research on mindfulness is that sometimes merely bringing ourselves back to the present without even doing additional work, cognitive work, that is, just bring ourselves back to the present dissolves the inner conflict, whether it's in the form of anxiety or sadness. So just becoming mindful.
You bet.
And Mark Williamson from Oxford University talks about how we can learn to observe the physical manifestations of an emotional state, whether it's anxiety or whether it's sadness, to learn to observe it with friendly curiosity. And I love that phrase. Yeah. And what you're talking about, coming back from the future, what you're doing is you're observing whatever it is you're experiencing, and then you're bringing another layer, and that is, of course, the mental, the cognitive.
Right.
That's why it's so powerful.
And then shifting you into the emotional and spiritual, which is, what would self-trust and courage do now? If my anxiety is because I'm trying to protect myself from, or my family, or whatever it is, from this thing, right? That the unknown. If I develop my own self-trust, if I can be bold enough and brave enough to look at the thing that's happening and ask myself, what would self-trust and courage do now? A whole world of opportunities open. And so I love that. Tal, you know what I really appreciate about you is your rigor around research. I have always appreciated that, and how simple you make things. You are like the human, whisperer of research. And so it really makes it practical and easy, so easily accessible. So thank you for that.
Well, thank you. Thank you. Jana, Hi.
Hello, Tal. Hello, Neha. Nice to see you, and thank you very much for this webinar. My question is about. I feel that we still have a lot of stigma about mental illness, about burnout, because, if someone feels emotionally bad coming to burnout, people probably will say to the manager, or if they need to miss work, they will say my stomach hurts or I have a fever, and probably will not say that they are emotionally not well. So my question is, as you work so much in this area, how do we break this stigma, and what is effective actions we can do to help to break this stigma? Because this is ridiculous, because so much people have these issues that it's still not okay to talk about it, and it's still in the companies, it still exists this stigma. For example, the one that comes to my mind, that I know that, for example, managers and senior leadership could show share their examples that they also experienced, for example, burnout or depression. But is there any more effective ways how we can do it?
Are you in a position of leading other people?
I'm in HR, not leading other people.
In HR. Beautiful. You have an incredible role, because when people feel trapped, when they don't get what they need, they're going to come to you. Now, this is going to be about how deeply you can listen and be present with their emotions. Oftentimes, I think that trying to change, I am very guilty of single-handedly trying to change healthcare. Guilty as charged. And that led me straight to burnout. And so what I'd say is, it's a mewe world framework. People need to take care of themselves. They also need to know they might need this job in this moment to keep their family fed, right? And they need to take a look at the system in which they're in, right? But when they come to you, what I would say is listening not just for their words that they're saying to you, but helping them name their emotions, helping them, you reflecting back for them what they value. And what I'd tell you about tears is that I had said earlier that the biggest misconception I think the world has is that tears are a sign of weakness. I want to tell you that I'm a very emotional doctor, and we're not allowed to be, right? That stay tough. You'll burn out if you care about your patients. No, I would cry at their bedside and hold their hand as I gave them the diagnosis of cancer, right? Like I could feel what this meant. And what I'd tell you is when our tears show, to me, it's not weakness. It's in fact me trusting myself enough and me trusting you enough to share what's close to our hearts. And if in that exchange, so what I'd say is the experience around anger, the experience around anxiety, I think the reason we have so much stigma about this is because as a society, when we don't know how to navigate something, we try to move it out of the way. It's messy. It takes too much time, all of these things. And so I wonder what it would be like to connect it. In the first book that Tal mentioned, I do 5 chat. You know what? I'm happy to give everyone in your world here a free audiobook of my first book on emotions. Okay. So I will give you, use that same beginning, Tal, intuitiveintelligenceinc.com/audiobook gift, and put as the code, I will do this as soon as I can, put HSA as the code. Okay. And
Fantastic.
they will do HSA. And for those on my team listening, please do HSA. Please program that quickly. And so what I'd say here is in the 5 middle sections, the 5 middle chapters of the book, 11 to 15, you understand emotions first. You are the pillar of this organization. People are going to come to you Start with the me piece of this. Make sure you can ground emotions to the science underneath them. Make sure you yourself can cleanse your judgments of emotions, tears, anger, anxiety, whatever it is. And make sure you have a tool that you can share with them, resources you can give them to help them be better. Because sometimes they then will be the force that goes out in the world and shares with the world what you have done. So there are things you can do without trying to use your energy to reverse engineer a company. Do it on the ground, do it with the people who are ready, and you start with you. Start with you, learn these experiences. And if you have any questions, you can please ask me and my team will get me those questions and I will help you, because this is the moment when you're asking a question about something, you are the conduit. You are the one that is going to make this ripple effect in the world, and you have that power. So I feel the same way about you. I just felt about Ostrid. You know, you are the one who is going to use your lived life experience to create this change in the world. It's not by mistake that you're here.
Thank you. I sometimes feel even like guilt because we talk a lot, Tal teaches us a lot about permission to be human. And when I, for example, talk with the employees and try to pass that it's okay to experience emotions, that it's okay to not be okay, that if you're not in a good phase, it is important to look at it and it's okay to talk about it. But I feel sometimes guilt that I'm talking because in the world, in the organizations, is still not. I'm feeling like I'm doing not the job. I know that I'm doing correctly talking about this, but because in general it's not seen still like this, so I feel that like we need to do something globally to change it.
So I want you to just, I went to this last week. I'm in India right now, and I went to a Lead Like Gandhi 7-day workshop at Gandhi's ashram. That's what I just came out of. Wow. And what I want you to know is that I'm Indian and I am only learning about Gandhi now. I'm 53 years old, and this is probably one of the biggest gifts we gave the world, right, as an Indian community. But what I know is I'm right on time. That everything in my life has led me here. And when I went to this workshop, I was with 15 other souls from around the world who in their own parallel way are tea lights. I envision them as like tea lights. I didn't even know that they existed. And they're busy carrying this work into the world. And so we don't have to know. We just have to know what's important to our hearts. And we have to think globally and act locally, like do our part, because at some point, all those tea lights are going to come together and create a beautiful flame of love. And so just keep doing your part. Keep doing your part.
Thank you. That's true.
Thank you both. Wow. Neha, can we go a little bit over?
We're going to answer whatever questions they have. I am happy.
Thank you. Thank you. I know it's, what is it?
4:41 a.m.
4:41 a.m. All right. Zara.
Hi, this has been great. Thank you for putting this together. And also, I just wanted to give a shout out to Astrid. I am a graduate student and I'm really happy to see compassionate faculty like her. So my question is, I realized that I usually notice I have burnout when I'm at the exhaustion phase. So I don't notice it. And maybe it's like I'm busy all the time, but I don't notice it until it really like knocks me out. So is like, I know you shared the assessment, but is there like an early warning sign that I can like pay attention to? Or I just wish I could like realize it earlier so that I don't get to that point.
Zara, you have just tapped into one of the most important gateways to transforming burnout. So in my book, this is chapter 4. It's called Deciphering. I don't know the exact title, but Deciphering Your Body's Unique Language. You won't be able to figure out your emotions or burnout unless you know how to decipher your body's unique language. The story I told you about me walking in that day and burning out, what I want you to know is congratulations, okay? You have become a master of the external world. You are probably someone who knows exactly what is needed, knows exactly how to take care of it for the world, and in the process has tuned out anything that would stop you from being able to do that. Does that sound correct?
Yeah, I don't know if I can say unfortunately, but yeah, it is correct.
Yeah, no, this is amazing because our world is moving faster and faster. And in order to keep up, the one thing we're all a part of it. We have collectively come together with our minds in order to create a world that is moving so fast, and we have forgotten about our own biology. In our conquest to do this, right? Faster is better, do more with less, profit over people, success requires struggle. I mean, I could go on and on. These are outdated beliefs that we are immersed in. Why do we do this? Because we want to belong. We want to be a part of what is successful in the world. We want to contribute. And so we've all gone along with this, and not all, I don't want to put everyone in it, but many of us have gone along with this. Guilty as charged right here. And so in the process, what you have to do is almost override your own physiology. So that day that I burned out, I'll tell you my unique way. There's you being in your comfort zone, your body being relaxed, at ease, things that you do in your day that are automatic. When your physiology starts speaking to you, so for me, it's heart racing, throat constricting, and stomach turning. That's how it shows up for me. Tal, when you move out of your comfort zone, do you know how your body talks to you?
Oh, yeah.
What is it? What does it do?
Yeah, for me, it's my throat and my belly.
Yeah. And by the way, you have, besides your brain and spinal cord and your heart, your gut has the most number of nerves. I want to give the parents on this call something that I wish my parents knew. I would be playing happily, and then they'd say, it's time to go to school. And I would say, but I have a tummy ache. I can't go to school. And they're like, Neha, you were just playing. Like, you're fine. Like, go to school. What I was trying to tell them is I was getting bullied at school. My body was saying it. And so what do we do? We say, come on, you were just playing, you're fine. Your children's body, they are still in tune with it. And we stamp that out of them because we don't understand that should be a warning sign for us. Now, as an adult, what I'd say is, Zara, when I'm working with anyone who tells me that they can't feel these sensations until late, the first thing I do is what I did with you. Congratulations, you're a master of the external world. You have accomplished something. Now, grab, I don't have anything here with me, but grab like a AirPod case, a lipstick case, a smooth stone in your hand. And when you are in meetings, when you are talking to people, I want you to try and have a simultaneous experience, how I had you feel gravity pulling you down in your body. When you're in a meeting, a conversation, and something emotionally changes for someone else or for you, I would have you tap in, but you're saying, Neha, I don't feel anything in here. So what I want you to tell yourself is, I can feel this stone in my hand. And what we're doing is we're taking what you are a master of, the external world, and we're putting it right here. And we're now going to, after a few weeks, tap you into your internal world. Because pretty soon what you'll say is, oh, I feel slightly like tight in my chest. Oh, wow, my right shoulder. And it will open up your own physiology. And so what your body needs you to know is that it's kept you safe. for a long time, because that was something that would have undermined you. And now you even asking this question tells me you're ready. You're ready to tune in. So the soft belly breathing and in the link that says PBM resources, the guided imageries, you're ready. You're ready now.
Oh, thank you.
Yes, I hope that helps, Sarah.
It definitely does.
Thank you. Thank you. Terry.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Okay, great. I want to thank you for taking the time, especially I know we're going over, so I'll try to be brief. But phenomenal. I have 3 different graduate degrees. During COVID, I became a yoga teacher. I'm studying now Ayurvedic practices and healing. I own a couple clinical practices in Michigan, and I'm the only fully licensed in 5 counties. So I'm basically the country doctor, see every and anybody in different settings and whatnot. Anyways, so I became burnout in 1986. I triple majored from U of M in 2.5 years.
Wow.
I got my real job and was physically assaulted by clients 3 times in 7 months. And with all that, I really kind of internalized it like, oh, I'm not a very good therapist. Well, I do like people, but, maybe this isn't for me. And then I just need more school. So I went on, and for like the next 10 years, I got 3 more graduate degrees. But near my 13th year, I crashed. Physically, my body was so exhausted. I got a PhD in 2 years, which is just crazy to do. But by the end of that, by the time I did my medical residency, I was diagnosed with chronic fatigue disorder and fibromyalgia because they couldn't figure out what was wrong with me. And for the first 6 months of my residency, it was a complete fog. Like I still can't remember how I got through each and every day. And it's really strange because memory, I find my memory and other people's memory so dependent on anxiety and depression and emotional factors. So when I'm smooth sailing, I can actually remember, being 18 months old and health. But when I'm in this fog, funk, exhaustion, anxiety, depression, whatever, it's gone. Like I can't remember what I had for breakfast. So my question is, one of my coping ways of learning is to learn more. So, like I said, way back, in 1989, my answer was, I don't know enough. Like I need to pursue, I need to better understand people. And then with COVID, everybody was cooped up, and I'm like, well, I got to learn something. And I did a wonderful yoga teachers training in Ayurvedic studies. I love how you are so holistic. And that's what I love about Ayurvedic also is, again, they look at spiritual, mental, physical, social, yoga union. So my question is, how can we get on the same page with medical doctors who clearly, I have probably a dozen medical doctors who refer to me, people who might have, acid reflux or migraines or, just a myriad of physical disorders. By the time they reach my office, sometimes they're suicidal. And it's like a matter of safety issues instead of taking a step back, trying to, talk about the sympathetic, parasympathetic nervous systems and, all these techniques that you've given us. Are just wonderful because they're practical. They work. I'm so looking forward to reading your materials. But getting back to the question, how can we make this more well-known and widespread? Because like I said, I see it in my patients every day. I'm on the clinical side, the medical side, but also kind of the spiritual side too. I don't have a background in business by any means, but how do you think we can take this nugget and run with it? and help others.
So
Sorry.
Terry, you're perfect. You're perfect. I just want to start by really acknowledging how learning and growing have been your strategy to overcome the pain in the world inside you. And I can actually feel it. I can feel it quite deeply. So what I want to say is thank you for being committed to keep going. Thank you for being committed to heal others. The part of me wants to know if you are equally committed to healing you. And yes. I will absolutely give you a tool that I teach our fellow colleagues. What I say that's the most damaging that we do is when somebody comes to us at what I call a sacred exchange. And by the way, that's what I've felt with each one of you. It's a sacred exchange. It's a moment where somebody shares what is deep and close to their heart and soul and is willing to be vulnerable in service of getting an answer to help others. And what I'd say is when the opportunity we miss as physicians is when somebody comes to us and as healers, any healer, that if they come to us with a physical ailment and we run the tests for them and it comes back, quote, normal, that we go out and we say, you're fine. You're fine. Actually, everything was negative. You're fine. But they don't feel fine. And in that space, here's my dream. This is what I teach. When I teach in healthcare, this is what I teach. I say to all my colleagues, please don't tell people that they're fine. Please say something to this effect. There's good news and there's bad news. Here's the good news. The electrical rhythm of your heart looks good on EKG. I've done an ultrasound and a stress test and your heart is pumping well. The physical strength and electrical function of your heart is doing well. Here's the bad news. You still are having this discomfort inside you. And I'm wondering if there might be something unresolved on a mental, emotional, social, or spiritual level that's showing up in your physical body to get your attention. And me merely listening to them, connecting to them, being present for them, and asking them that has them telling me the answer. Oh my God, you're right. It's this. I got in this argument. I've disowned my son. Whatever it is, I don't know what it is, but they know. And so the first thing I'd say is having a tool. And here's one other tool, and it's in the audiobook gift that I gave you. It's in the intro. There's 5 questions called an awareness prescription that I used to ask my patients the night before I would discharge them. And it's called the awareness prescription. And what I say is stress causes or exacerbates more than 80% of all illness. So let's try to get to the root of your stress. Question number 1, why this? Why a heart attack? Why not your liver, your left leg? Why did this part of your body break down? And any answer you give me is the right one. Question number 2, why now? Why not 2 years ago? Why not 3 weeks from now? What is the message that your body stopped you in your tracks for that you may have been too busy to receive? Question number 3, since hindsight's 2020, what signals, clues, patterns that you didn't see before may be crystal clear now? Question number 4, what else in your life needs to be healed? And question number 5, if you spoke from the heart, what would you say to me? And pretty much every person knows what it is that's at the root there. And so what I do when I go to places all over, and I speak to my colleagues, I'm trying to give them a simple framework and resources. I want you to know that here's the secret. I don't actually like reading books, but I write them because I need a way to give resources in a scalable way. The way that I learn is experientially, right here with you. I would, by far, I told you I came to a 7-day Lead Like Gandhi retreat in Gandhi's ashram in India. Why? Because I knew in 7 days I would download and embody what I needed to versus the lots of books that are out there. For me, my learning is different. And so now that I've accepted that, I lean toward that. So could we maybe in that sacred exchange, once again, I'm going to ask you to act locally, think globally, but act locally. Have that sacred exchange, which I think you do so naturally, and give them tools. And whoever your colleagues are that are referring to you, when they give you feedback that somebody's doing well, coming off their migraine medication, their sleep medication, all of these things, that's the moment to say to them, wow, I'd love to share with you a tool that I've been using that I think has contributed to this, and give them a framework, because healers just want to help. We just want to help. And it's only when we don't have an answer or don't think we can help that we say something to the effect of, you're fine.
Thank you so much. I feel this has been a very sacred exchange. Thank you.
Thank you, Terry. And then Neha, thank you. We're going to take one more question. There are many more questions. I've been communicating with some people behind the scenes, and they will send their questions to your website, and your team will get it to you. But we'll take one more final question from Sandy.
Sure.
Thank you, Tom. Thank you, Neha, for such a powerful questions and powerful tools. Thank you so much. And my question goes more on, you've talked about the me-we world levels, right? And I think that most of what we've touched has to do with how can I handle burnout? How can I heal myself? How can I, and my question goes a little bit further from that. And I know obviously Raj's book on healing organizations. What would be the approach in order not only to teach people to, take care of yourself and take care of burnout, but I think it's a systemic thing. I think that's the system is ill, and the way things are organized are doing this harm to people, and probably part of why high level managers don't want to speak about this is because if people start being conscious about the levels of burnout that they have, they're going to start putting limits to the amount of work they're doing, and will be asking for more life-work balance. And organizations are afraid that they're going to lose productivity, and people are going to reveal or get rebel in some sort of way. So what would be like the correct approach? Because I'm writing a book on emotionally responsible organizations, and I would love to have your point of view on what would be the correct way to move the consciousness of the people who are owning the business in order for them also, the system needs to be changed from the roots. I think it's not only a matter of learning how to deal with how things are. I really think that how things are is sick, and we need to change it. And what would be your approach, your point of view on this?
Oh my gosh, Sandy. So I want to thank you for your passion around this, because you're a force of nature. You believe this so deeply, and you are so committed to making it happen. And we need people like you in the world. So thank you. Thank you for that. You mentioned Raj's book, The Healing Organization. So Raj Sisodia is my partner. And yes, he's written many books. So what I would do is, the first thing that I do is I pay attention to who my audience is. What is their pain point? And what is going to help solve that, and how do they take in information? So if who is on the receiving end for you is struggling with turnover and is someone who is data driven, I would go back to Raj's first book. I wouldn't give them the example of the Healing Organizations, which is 25 insanely beautiful stories of organizations that are living and being this way. Okay. I would go to Firms of Endearment, which is the book on the 28 companies that were studied rigorously. And conscious capitalism was born from this. Conscious capitalism is a way where everybody matters, everybody wins, basically where leaders of companies get 4 main takeaways of how you run a company in a way that not only is good for the mewe world model, but you make 9 times more profit over 10 years if you do it this way. So maybe the person who's on the receiving end needs to hear that. Then I would go to Firms of Endearment. That's where all the research is. Then conscious capitalism is what came from that, which is 4 pillars of how you do it, right? So you have a purpose higher than profit. Every decision you make, you don't just make it for your shareholders next quarter. You make it you look at every stakeholder that is affected by the decision you're going to make. What do they value? And you figure out the solution where everybody matters and everybody can win. Now that requires a higher level of consciousness to be able to do that. The third one is conscious leadership, that no matter who you are in a company, you must be advancing your own level of consciousness. And lastly, use your values, your purpose, your decision-making to create a conscious and caring culture. And so the first thing that I would say in this is, thank you. Thank you for your passion. Thank you for your courage in doing this. And what we have to do is match your efforts to the pain points of the other and give it to them in a way that can influence them. But I would say the most important thing is you showing up in the world with love, with care, even in the times when they don't understand why they would do this. I'm clearly being influenced from my last week at Lead Like Gandhi, but what I think he did that I am so in tune with now is his greatest. I mean, how could a 5'5" man who weighed 90 pounds bring down the British Empire? Like, woo, right? Because when he spoke to them, he always held them as their higher consciousness in their being. He would speak to them and tell them what he disagreed about their actions, but he always held someone who has an opposing belief than him with the highest of respect and honor. And what I've learned through that is that we need to have our ability to communicate and meet people where they are, but the only way we're going to heal the world is through love. Yeah.
Totally agree. Thank you so much. Thank you so much.
Wow. Neha, thank you for embodying everything that you're talking about, for being a role model. I know for so many people, and now for us as a thinker, as a teacher, as a leader. This was profound, interesting, inspiring. What else can one ask for? Thank you, and to be continued. I can't wait to continue to follow you, to learn from you, to talk to you, and thank you for everything that you brought today and that you bring through your work.
Yeah, and in whatever ways I can support the world and your work and the ripple effect that you have in the world. I love your the World Happiness Summit experience for me is a different one than many that I have experienced in the world. I've gone now twice, Miami and Lake Como. And Tal, there's something so special about what you've created. And in any way that I can be a part of it, I would be honored to.
Thank you. We will take you up on that.
Invite her to New Jersey, Tal.
That's right. We have many retreats coming up. Some of our community members are suggesting you join us. So to be continued. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you all for being here. And we could have gone on for another few hours. The amount of questions that I'm getting for you, unprecedented. So,
well, listen, Tal, if you want to do this one more time, I'm happy to do that. Really? With you, or if you'd like us to write the answers, we can write them, whatever way feels the most impactful for your group.
Thank you. Beautiful. Thank you very much. And thank you all. And take good care of yourselves and others. Bye-bye.
Tal is the master teacher of happiness.
I think he's so brilliant and wise and kind and humble. Everything that Tal teaches is based in science, that it's very interdisciplinary. And I love the fact that we draw on economics and science and psychology and literature and art and just everything as the holistic approach, and everything is interconnected.
You gave me this evidence-based, science-based tool, and I'm always grateful to you. Wherever you go, I'm going to follow you. That's it. You're not ever going to get rid of me.
Hello, everyone, and welcome. California, Mexico, China, Greece, Paris, Singapore, Indonesia, Ireland, Toronto, Argentina. Wow, that's amazing. HSA is not a certificate program. HSA is a community.
I signed up for the material, and the teacher, obviously world renowned and wonderful. What I didn't realize is that I was going to get a community that is so wonderful. There are people from all parts of the world, and it just makes for such a rich conversation. And of course, events like this where we get to meet in person just really solidifies that the community is made up of like-minded individuals, professionals within their own fields that are leaders and want to take this material that we're learning and spread it with the rest of the world. And the friendships made are what makes us all happier in the end.
When you find a community of people who want to live purposeful lives, then it just amplifies the experience that we're all here to share together.